It's America's daring, highly trained special mission force. We saw G.I. Joe. Hit it. It was 1982. Michael Jackson's Thriller totally ruled. Disney's Epcot was open for business, and Hasbro introduced a 3 3/4-inch articulated figure to rival Star Wars, a figure that would fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Joining me is a very special guest, Todd Killian. You might know him from that Way Tubular Christmas Clatter podcast. Todd, how's it going?
Going well. Going very well. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I've been a fan of your podcast for a while now, and I like all the episodes that you've co-hosted when you've done other podcasts as well. So thanks for coming on.
Well, anytime. It's just an honor to be asked, no matter who asks. And if you haven't determined it by now, I always say yes. So
that's fine. I like that. Yeah. And you know how it goes. Anytime you need anything, I'll say yes as well.
Right.
So what's been going on, man? Catch me up.
Well, world's turned upside down, as you know, but fortunately / unfortunately, my job continues, so I'm still I was out in the middle of the world every day, doing my regular job, and come home to a bunch of kids that have been shut in all day and have a ton of energy. So
and they're going crazy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just lucky when the house isn't burnt down when I come home.
I understand. See, I'm the one watching the little ones, so I'm the one trying not to burn the house down while my wife works during this time.
Well, I think I'm a little bit ahead of you because I have basically 3 teenagers and then a 7-year-old. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I got the 7-year-old. She's fine. She can do her thing. Yeah. But the 3-year-old and the 1-year-old, they're the ones that, sometimes I wish I could sell them to a zoo,
Yes. Yeah, they'll just bring them back after a few hours anyway.
They probably will, yeah. Full of sugar, like grandparents.
Right.
Oh, man. So let me ask you, what are your thoughts on G.I. Joe? What's your experience with them?
I love G.I. Joe. Of all the toy fads from the 80s, you think G.I. Joe, you think He-Man right away, you think Transformers right away, Thundercats, Silverhawk.
Oh, yeah.
Mask, the list goes on and on. And I love every one of them. But for me, G.I. Joe was the one that I really gravitated towards more than the others. And I couldn't, I'd have to sit down and really hash out why. I think a little bit of it is because of the military kind of thing about it. I really like, the others were more fantasy or sci-fi. G.I. Joe had some of that in there, but I just liked it better and gravitated to it, but I was in and out, depending on the month of the year, He-Man might be it or Transformers might be it, but G.I. Joe was always that consistent one that I always went back to. And I think a lot of it was the storylines through the cartoons, because they had several series that were, next episode kind of thing that kept you waiting to see what happened. So
I distinctly remember growing up, coming home from daycare. I wasn't even at in grade school yet. I was in daycare, and I remember coming home each weekday to watch the next episode, and I was being so excited. In that first miniseries, and I think that was in 1983 when it came out. But but it's just I agree, same thing. Something about the military, it kept it kind of grounded.
Right.
But at the same time, they did dabble in the science fiction and fantasy as well.
Right.
I remember.
And a lot of the episodes have popped up on YouTube and on Tubi.
Oh, uh-huh.
You can watch. I think all of them are on Tubi right now for free.
Oh, nice.
And I kind of, in preparation of this, I kind of start just grabbing random episodes here and there.
Yeah.
And it looks a lot like Star Wars because when they're fighting, there's lasers flying through the air, but not hitting anything. So
they all trained at the Stormtrooper Academy.
Right. So it kind of had this Star Wars feel about it as well. And, because some of those bases they were at had almost like a spaceship kind of feel to them. So
yeah,
it was a nice blend of everything that was going on at the time, I think.
It's funny you mentioned Star Wars because that's actually why the smaller figures were introduced. So G.I. Joe, they started in 1964. So really 1963 is when they came up with the idea, and then they kind of worked with it, bought it off Stan Weston, who designed it, and Hasbro released it in 1964, but it was a 12-inch figure, and they were the ones to come up with the term action figure because it was basically just a boy's doll, right? Trying to rival Barbie and dolls of that type, and they just needed something to corner that boys market, but their sales were doing really terrible in the late 1970s, early 1980s because Kenner licensed the Star Wars line, and they saw how big those figures were and how huge sales they were doing. So they decided to come up and retool, and it was kind of like a last ditch effort. Otherwise, I believe they were going to pretty much shut down that whole division. So they ended up making it work. That was in 1982 is when the first wave of figures came out, and Snake Eyes, who's probably the most popular,
right?
He was pretty much we ran out of money to produce a fully painted, fully sculpted figure kind of a thing.
Right.
And he ended up becoming like the most popular guy.
Right. Yeah, he absolutely was. I mean, because you remember this on the back of the card on the package, they always had the file figure that told you like all about him. And if I remember right, all Snake Eyes was his name, and everything else was classified.
Yeah.
And he knew he knew was black belt in all the martial arts and could do everything to the power of 10, and that's all you knew.
That's all you needed to know. He just looked so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, he looked cool. And I heard one guy say, it's because of not pinning anything on him that allowed Snake Eyes to run wild, because then he could do anything that you could imagine.
Pretty much. Yep.
And that's what fueled the sales of that. And I want to say, I think that's one reason I kept going back to him was the size. That 3 3/4 inch size was so right in the sweet spot, because I think about the He-Mans weren't great big, but they were bigger and kind of
bulkier,
in a lot less movement in them, and then the Transformers, they were a little bit bigger, but they needed to be. But like I remember getting some Thundercat stuff, and those were
huge.
They were huge, and it was a lot harder to play with them. I remember taking my G.I. Joes outside and digging a hole on the side of a hill.
Yeah.
And setting up like bases and stuff like that, and you just couldn't do that with those bigger figures.
No, and I mean, you think about it, they were made for children especially. And our hands were tiny, so I mean, it just made it so much easier. And then the thing that I liked about the GI Joes in particular was that they were much more articulated than like the Star Wars figures. Even the Thundercats, they could move their arms up and down, but the Joes could move them out, and they had the hinged, the hinged shoulder and all that stuff. And it just, to me, it just made them a lot cooler.
Right. And then when you got a vehicle, the vehicle wasn't overly big. I mean, they had monstrously sized vehicles.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, Flag.
Right. But, if you got what was that? I can't think of it. I wrote it down, that little motorcycle with the Gatling gun on the side,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was called a Ram, but I don't know remember what it stood for. But, that thing wasn't monstrously big, so you could have it and still play with it and not take up a lot of space.
Yeah. And the whole reason we're talking G.I. Joe today really is they did a survey. Toy and Hobby World magazine did a survey and they surveyed 3,000 U.S. retailers, and it turns out that G.I. Joe was the best-selling toy of 1986 for them. Yeah, so not so much Christmas time in general, but just their best-selling toy. And I distinctly remember getting the Sky Striker for Christmas one year. That was at that jet.
He'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe.
Cobra Nation! Get the G.I. Joe Sky Striker! Ace the Airborne, let's get those turkeys! We're gonna get Cobra this time! Our combat jets are on the way! Hey, check my missiles! They're A-OK! Great, I'm going down for a closer look! Way to go, Joe!
G.I. Joe Sky Striker comes with ace and 2 parachutes. Other figures sold separately from Hasbro.
It was like a white, I don't even remember what kind of jet it was, but I just remember it was like the coolest thing ever. And I was at my grandma's house when I got it, and we opened it up, and it was like the best, one of the best presents I've ever gotten.
Right. Now I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, was 86 when Sergeant Slaughter joined the roster?
Oh, man. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I think so. I think he was in that Series 5.
Right. I think he was too. I wonder if that had something to do with it.
And yeah, probably, because I remember he was pretty decent decent level wrestler, right? He was pretty popular in wrestling.
Yeah, he was pretty popular in wrestling. I think he had been world champion.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And you might have to edit this out if we fact check it. I think he lost the belt to the Iron Sheik, who ended up dropping the belt to Hulk Hogan.
Oh, nice.
Run. So, if my wrestling knowledge holds true,
the most I know about wrestling is that the cartoon from the 80s, yes. Rockin' Wrestling.
Well, if you're doing 80s, you'll have to talk about wrestling sometime.
That one and No Holds Barred. Right. Those are like the only things I really know about wrestling.
Well, pencil me in on your wrestling episode.
Okay, we'll do for sure.
I know an embarrassing amount about wrestling, especially then. So.
All right, man. Well, that's a plan. I'll definitely put you in the schedule coming up. So the figures came out in 82, and in 83 they had the commercials. Mm-hmm. They were only like 30-second long commercials with the cartoon, and they were so popular, and the figures were doing so well because of it, that they launched those miniseries you were talking about, those 5-part series, which Hasbro just released them for free on YouTube now for this quarantine, which is really cool of them. But I was watching them with my 3-year-old, and he was just loving it.
Right.
And it reminded me, back in, let's say in 83, I was 3, and I remember just watching it, and I hate, yes, I grew up watching TV. I'm sorry, but it wasn't as much of a stigma back then. But but yeah, I remember watching it when I was 3, and it blew my mind. And so the fact that I got to share that with my son made it really, really cool as well.
Well, in my research, preparing to be on the episode, the commercials that started running were actually for the comic book and not for the toys.
Oh, that's right.
Because there were so much limitations you could do for advertisement of toys on TV, but there was no limitations on what you could show for the comic book advertisement.
She's been kidnapped by Cobra. We have no alternative. Call in G.I. Joe.
He'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. He never gives up. He'll stay till the fight's won. G.I. Joe.
Who's leader of the Joe team? Hawk.
He's America's best. He's in control. He's the man.
Good luck, Joe.
He lives his days. The legend of G.I. Joe.
The Legend of G.I. Joe. New from Marvel Comics.
That's right.
Kind of a sneaky snake, Cobra style.
That's what I was about to say. Worthy of Cobra Commander there.
backdoor advertisement for the toys.
Yeah, it was Marvel Comics. Jim Shooter was the editor at the time, and he brought us Secret Wars. He was responsible, and of course he was also responsible for the new universe, but we won't hold that against him.
Right.
But he was asking everyone around who wanted to write for G.I. Joe, and every single person turned it down except for Larry Hama. And it was because of him that we got the cool backstories like the classified Snake Eyes and Duke, Conrad Dukehauser and Scarlet and all that stuff. And so we can really, I guess we can really thank Larry Hama for making Joe's cool and coming up with Cobra and all that stuff. But,
that I think that's part of the intrigue is the backstories are so well done.
Yeah.
They're probably, in my opinion, they're probably the best backstories and the best comics from that era.
Yeah, I agree. He really built a world, you know. And then of course in the comics they delved more into romance, and they even got into Cobra Commander's backstory, which is different from the G.I. Joe movie. You know, and all sorts of, I mean, he really delved into it. And I know, I think he said he was a little disappointed with the cartoon because they kind of dumbed it down a little bit for kids, which, you know, it makes sense.
That's usually what happens.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember reading the comics, and I remember reading the one where Cobra Commander finds his like long lost son, and it reminds him, you know, what a good man he used to be. I mean, it was, you know, it's stuff like that's really deep that that you just don't get very much anymore. I think maybe Batman the Animated Series did that pretty well, but you know, you don't really see that kind of level of intrigue. And you go and we watch He-Man or Thundercats, and I love them; they're my favorites. But you know, it's all very surface level type stuff.
Right. I think because of, you know, the subject matter, it's you know, it's hard to take deep dives backwards.
Yeah.
You know, from He-Man and Eternia, because then it gets convoluted, you know. But with something like Joe, like we said, it was kind of grounded a little bit.
Yeah.
So it was easier to make human stories for it. So.
Yeah. Did you ever get like a cap gun and just use that as like the sound effects for for your Joes?
I've like I said, I used to dig out in the side of a hill and do that, and then me and my friends used to trade them. You know,
nice.
Like playing cards, you know, if you had something you really wanted. I remember one of my friends got Storm Shadow, and everybody was going nuts.
Storm Shadow, yeah.
And, one of my friends basically traded all his G.I. Joes for Storm Shadow. It's like, that might not have been the best move in the world, but.
Oh, man. Well, we never traded, but I remember we would like just put all our Joes in like our backpacks and stuff, and we'd take them to school. And after school, we'd go to someone's house, and we would just open them all up. You know, we would just play.
Right.
And I remember one of my friends, Richard, he had the USS Flag.
I got it! Wow.
Here it is, the USS Flag aircraft carrier. Imagine being on the deck of this aircraft carrier.
The USS Flag is fantastic! It's so big! Lowering that! Launch station! Get ready to launch aircraft! Where's the Admiral? Not here! G.I. Joe! Fire! We got Cobra! Go, Joe!
USS Flag aircraft carrier comes with what you see here. Other figures and equipment sold separately.
Go, Joe!
Oh, wow.
And that thing was massive. It like took up almost like his whole room.
Right.
And you know, it was amazing playing with that, because I mean my parents couldn't afford that. You know, but I remember distinctly one time bringing my Sky Striker over, and you could actually land it on the flag. That's how big it was. It was so crazy, but it was crazy awesome.
Well, and my best friend growing up, he had two older brothers, and they figured out how to take the G.I. Joes apart.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so we started doing that, and we'd mix match all their pieces together and build our own characters.
That's cool.
You know, and you know, give them different guys' arms and bodies and legs and heads and things like that. And so some of mine are, I'm sure, are all the wrong pieces put together. We did that too as well with them.
Because they had, it was like a little rubber band, right? That kind of held
that
them.
was the trickiest thing, because there was like this little hook with a knob on the end of it that you had to get the rubber band around that, but you had to get it through the set screw through the torso at the same time.
Oh, wow.
As soon as you snapped it together and hold it, you could put the screw through the back.
Okay.
It was fine, but it was a little bit of a, I wouldn't say delicate, but there was a trick to it, but we got pretty good at it. And,
nice.
But that was a lot of fun too, especially on the characters that you didn't care so much about. That were
yeah.
kind of lame.
Well, like that first series was a lot of like the grunts kind of guys,
Right.
grunt, rock and roll, was a heavy
Right.
duty maybe.
Right.
Some of the guys that
Was it Stryker? Was he the one that uh had the beret and the tiger stripe camouflage, something like that? I can't remember.
there was Flint, but he was
Yeah,
later. I
was
don't think
Flint.
that's who you're talking about.
This guy looked like Billy D. Williams a little bit, with the
Oh,
mustache.
Stalker.
Stalker. That's
Stalker.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my buddy had him. I was always so jealous of that because he was so cool.
He was smooth, man. I was watching the
Yeah.
cartoon the other day, and it's
Yeah.
just like, man, this cat is smooth. He just,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember those. They became, or they were a lot less memorable that first series, and then
Right.
when series 2 and 3 came out, they were a lot more. There was a lot cooler guys like
Right.
Spirit, Quick Kick, and of course Storm Shadow. And
Yeah. I actually had Spirit. He was one that I did get for Christmas one year.
nice.
So with the eagle.
Yeah.
Freedom.
I think that was his name. Yeah.
Freedom. Yeah.
I had him, and then my little brother was playing. My aunt used to own an ice cream shop. My little brother was playing, and we were in the back, and there was like this big drain, and she had taken off the cover for a bit, and he like dropped it down there, and I never saw him again. It was like the saddest thing in the world at the time.
I could imagine.
Yeah, because he was really cool. I remember really liking his character.
Yeah.
And just the wise Native American. But yeah, that they really started developing characters, and they had the more outlandish costumes and weapons, and everything was like Zartan.
He was cool.
He was super cool, yeah, because he would change color,
right. And then he would actually change color. The toy would actually change color in the sun, which was
that was like the coolest thing in the world, Oh man, and then the whole Dreadnoks came out, and Firefly, and I mean all those guys. I mean Destro was pretty hip.
Yes, Destro was one that I always wanted, but he was always so hard to find.
Yeah.
Seems like as soon as a Destro line would hit, it was gone.
Yeah, I remember that.
Everybody wanted him. I did end up getting a helmeted Cobra Commander, which was a mail-in only.
That's right. He was mail-in, yeah.
And I remember mailing it off, being so excited, and it seemed like it took years to get it back. I'm not sure how long it took, but
it was probably just a few weeks.
Right. But I remember that coming in the mail, and I was so excited, So.
Yeah, the Cobra Commander was cool. I remember the one that I always wanted was with the hood.
I never did get the hood one.
I never did either. And I remember it just seemed so cool. I was like, man, he's got the hood on, it was something different. And I just never found it. And the Destro that we did find was had a gold helmet on and like a red cape. It was like a later issue.
Right.
And
that was probably after they did the that last miniseries where they got I can't remember the guy's name, like the Supreme Cobra Commander guy from.
Serpentor.
Yeah, Serpentor. That's probably where that one came from. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of really cool ones. But the thing I always wondered about Destro was, how does he move his mouth if he's got that metal helmet on?
Right.
How do his lips move?
Right. Yeah, that was one thing they never quite answered. Is how he got a metal head.
Yeah, yeah, his head's just made of metal, I guess.
Right. Didn't he have a romance with the Baroness?
With the Baroness, yeah.
It's like,
my dear Baroness, or something. I'm terrible. I'm such a tenor. I can't do baritone voices at all, or bass voices. But
that's okay. I can't do tenor voices. So.
Oh man, we should narrate our own G.I. Joe episodes.
You got it.
Oh man, no, but so yeah, Snake Eyes and Duke were always my two favorites.
Right.
Duke, just because he was a main guy, and for some reason when I was little, I always had like this thing about like the leader. So like I loved Lion-O, I loved Optimus Prime, I loved Duke, Keith from Voltron, the red who drive the Black Lion. They were always like my favorite. And so Duke was always my favorite, Leonardo from Ninja Turtles, but then Snake Eyes, just like we were talking about, had that cool mystery about him, and he was like a ninja, and was all black, and he had the cool wolf.
Right.
So those two were always like my favorites. So I remember when GI Joe the movie came out and Serpentor, impaled Duke with that snake.
Mhm.
I remember at first thinking he was dead, and then later on, of course, they say he's going to be all right, and he came out of
Right.
his coma or whatever.
Mhm.
But I remember being terrified when I was little, thinking they killed Duke.
Right.
No.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, I remember that too. I was like, it took me a while to realize that that he wasn't dead. And I remember the first time I seen him after that, I was like, oh, I thought he was dead.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Hey, what happened to that guy?
Right. But yeah, Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow were my two favorites.
Yeah.
And one that I really liked Rock and Roll. He was one of my favorites because he came with the guns across his chest.
Oh yeah, the bandoliers. Yeah.
And one of the reasons I liked him so much, and I didn't realize this at the time, it wasn't until I got older and you think back and you kind of realize. I've said this 1,000 times on my podcast and everything. I was always a big music fan. I was always drawn, to the bass guitar when I first heard music. But I
Nice.
remember watching a cartoon and Rock and Roll was on there, and he runs off to go play with this band.
That's right. He plays bass, doesn't he?
He's a bass player, so he became instantly my favorite.
He's subconsciously
Right.
he made you play bass.
Right. So,
That's cool.
If he's a bass player, he's my favorite. So
Right on, man. I dig that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I remember there was this one episode where I think Cobra was like trying to hypnotize people through music. They had like their own rock band, and of course the Joes win. And then at the end, the Joes like sing and play or something like that. And I remember just loving their tune and wanting my dad to like play it all the time. And he's like, how? It's not like nowadays you Google it and download it and make it an MP3 or something. But
yeah, hey, you listen to it, you're like, man, I really like that a lot, did I?
And now, for the greatest rock and rollers in the land, the Average Joe Band.
He'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe. Against Cobra, the enemy, fighting to save the day. He never gives up, he's always there, fighting for freedom over land and air. A real American hero, G.I. Joe is there. He'll never give up, he'll stay till the fight's won. G.I. Joe will dare. G.I. Joe.
Yeah, exactly. You had to drive around if you wanted to hear the song again.
Right. Well, it's funny you said that because there was one action shot, and I don't even remember which episode it was in. And of course, you can't at the time. You couldn't record any of it unless you were purposely did it on VCR.
Yeah.
But there was one action shot where Flint does like this forward handspring, but he doesn't have a gun. But when he does that, and he jumps on his hands and does his flip, he lands on a gun and picks it up. So when he lands on his feet, he's shooting at the Cobras. And I remember watching it as a kid, just flipping out. I'm like, do you see how he picked up that gun?
These guys are all acrobats too.
Right.
They're not just trained in military tactics and sharpshooters.
Right. I remember being so excited as a kid. I still remember that shot clear as a bell, but I wish I could. It's probably happened nothing like I remember it, but I just remember thinking that, and that was just such an awesome action scene, and for a 7-8-year-old kid to watch.
Yeah, there was a lot of really cool things. Just watching the mass device the other day. They're like testing out they're like testing out the Joes to see, hey, is this new thing going to work? And they have them break into like this top security building, and it's like Snake Eyes, Scarlet, and Stalker. And those three, they each like take a different way to get in. And and all three of them, of course, get around the defenses and they sneak in. And I remember thinking, wow, that is like the coolest, because like how hard would that really be in real life,
Right.
but these guys, they just make it seem so easy. No
Yeah.
wonder I thought I was going to grow up to be Batman or something when I was little. Just make it all
Yeah.
seem so easy.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't realize how many episodes were Cobra trying to get some kind of MacGuffin to build some kind of super weapon, and
Yeah.
the GI Joes just chasing them around so that and it's like Cobra always gets all that they need to build the super weapon, but but
Yeah.
then they can never use it because GI Joe stops them.
Does the Joes stop them? Yeah.
Yeah.
or Cobra Commander does something so terrible.
Right. And we'll probably talk about that.
Yeah,
for the
yes. So we'll get to
special.
that when we talk about the Christmas episode in a bit. Yeah. It's so, oh man, the Cobra Commander. I mean,
his own worst enemy.
he really is. And I mean, they even call him out in G.I. Joe, the movie, when he's there before Globulus and all the guys. And Destro is like, how many times we had them on the ropes and then he called a retreat and things like that. It's like, wow, the Destro, just brutal, man. Destro's savage.
Right. Destro's kind of like Dwight from The Office, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Destro was always cool, but I got the feeling that he thought he was better than everybody else, and
Right.
and I never understood why he didn't just like take over. Like, why didn't he just assassinate Cobra Commander?
Right. Well, was there an episode where he did lead Cobra for a while?
Honestly, I don't remember.
Vaguely familiar, but it was like such a disaster. And then Cobra Commander comes back and puts him in his place or something along those. I mean, that I could be making that up, but that seems vaguely familiar to that.
I don't know. That definitely sounds like a like a Megatron and Starscream kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these episodes were either copied off each other, or they just start running out of ideas that they all kind of.
Yeah, they do
got
kind of
around
blend
to it.
together.
Right.
But speaking of, there is one particular episode about Christmas. It's called Cobra Claws Are Coming to Town. And it's great. The whole premise is essentially the Joes are on their way back from like a toy drive. They have all these toys they hand out. It's like a Toys for Tots kind of thing.
Right.
And Cobra attacks, but they do it just as a distraction so that Firefly could slip in an extra bundle of toys.
Right.
Cobra Rattler!
Happy holidays from Wild Weasel, you Christmas turkeys!
Look out!
Find us some cover, or we'll be eating asphalt!
Head for that rock pile up ahead. Got it, cover girl!
Ah, made it! Close call! Close call!
Yeah, but now what? That Rattler could keep us pinned down till next Christmas.
Wild Weasel to Cobra Commander. Firefly's mission is accomplished. Returning to base. Why'd he take off? He had us.
Who cares? He's gone. Let's not look a gift horse in the mouth.
So the Joes go back. They're having their Christmas dinner, and it turned so many Joes.
Can we talk about that slip in real quick?
Yeah. Go ahead.
GI Joes. There's 3 of them. And they're in this open air doom buggy. One of them is standing on the back with his back towards the trailer, and and the Cobra just walks up behind there, dumps some toys in there, and backs up, and nobody sees him at all.
It's like that episode of Simpsons where just kind of fades into the bushes.
Right. It's like you didn't see that mechanical door open from that rock.
Yeah.
And then walk up, dump toys in there, and then back up.
How did they build that mechanical door?
Right.
You know how long it takes to build something like that?
Right.
Cobra's construction crews are amazing. But yeah. So they take the toys back. Most of the Joes are gone on like holiday furlough, and it turns out that in the toys, Cobra shrunk themselves with like a shrink ray.
Right.
and so they shrink themselves, and then they take over. Like they just start attacking.
What in tarnation? Cobras?
They're not Santa's elves.
This has got to be a joke. Ow! Some joke.
That cooked his cupcake, Duke.
Too late. The ray's done its job.
Season's greetings.
Am I wrong? Were they still tiny when they started attacking?
Yes, they were still
Okay,
tiny
that's what I
because
thought.
apparently the potency of their lasers diminished as they got smaller because instead of wounding them, it was more of a sting feeling.
A sting, yeah. And so yeah, they're going. The Joes are fighting back, and Firefly, I think, again comes and not rehydrates, embiggens everybody.
Right.
Speaking of the Simpsons,
was it molecular reducer enlarger?
Yes, the molecular reducer enlarger
was the name of the weapon.
This molecular reducer enlarger represents a decade of research.
Destro, it's accomplished its purpose brilliantly. We now have the Joe weapons and vehicles we need for tomorrow's attack on Keystone City.
That tells you everything you need to know.
What does he say? It is a delicate piece of equipment or something like that.
And that it was. Very delicate.
Yes, it breaks. So they take over, and their whole plan, instead of like just killing the Joe's leaders and destroying everything, is to use the Joe's equipment to frame them,
right?
To attack a town as if they're declaring martial law or something like that.
Right.
Why do these? I mean, it's Bond syndrome. Like, why do they have to have like the most complex ways to defeat the heroes ever?
It's like, can you not like repaint your own weapons?
Yeah, exactly. How hard is it to get the G.I. Joe logo, take a picture of it, and then just paint it on your own?
Right. And then you can have the town attacked before the G.I. Joes even know anything was going on.
Yep. And and Zartan could still do his trick without impersonating Duke and making a public broadcast or a pirated broadcast that we're taking over and all that stuff. I mean, Zartan could still do it from like a nice safe Cobra room,
right. I mean, he's the master of disguise.
Yes.
Nobody's gonna believe it's anybody else. You figured after a while when someone does something really out of the character, someone would think, is that Zartan or is that really Duke?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. How many times have they fought Zartan now?
Right.
They know what he does.
Right.
G.I. Joe will return after these messages. Now back to G.I. Joe.
Oh man, no, but it leads to like my favorite line of the whole show, which is when the Joe, the fake Joes, the Cobras in the Joe's equipment are attacking, and the little boy says, "I thought G.I. Joe were good, or we're on our side," and the dad says, "So did I, son. So did I."
Right.
Dad, aren't those the G.I. Joes? I thought they were heroes.
So did I, son. So did I.
Yeah, it's just it's great, but it's also ridiculous. But I love it. At the same time, it's crazy. It's like this crazy dichotomy.
Speaking of ridiculous, when the Cobra and Cobra Commander take over G.I. Joe headquarters, they put them all in the meat locker hanging up on the meat hooks, and Shipwreck was able to somehow hug a side of beef with his leg.
Yeah, it's like a whole cow or something.
Take them away where they won't cause any mischief. Somewhere in keeping with the season. Yes, put them on ice.
Remember, mates, keep cool. I've just decided I hate puns. If we don't get out of here quick, We'll be a bunch of Joesicles. You know, me and that side of beef could have a meaningful relationship.
Is your brain frostbitten or what?
Come on, cover girl, you got no imagination. Just watch.
And then Cobra Commander has to gloat, so Shipwreck jumps up there, holds onto the hook like he's still hanging. And in his gloating and his arrogance, he leaves the handcuff key in the freezer with him just to rub it in.
Getting in his own way. And doesn't he say it's, I leave you this Christmas present?
Right.
If I can just get a grip, I can lift myself off this hook. Snowball's chance. Snowball's chance. Shut up, will you? I got it.
Gloating is childish, Cobra Commander.
Gloating? I simply wish to bid our friends a final farewell. What's this? Such gloom on a lovely holiday morning, and after I brought you all a present.
Present?
Of course, the key to your handcuffs. I'll hang it right here, just out of reach. And while you reflect on my generosity, remember that more presents are coming your way. Tons of them!
Yeah, this was right after the Baroness told him that that gloating is did she say it's weakness?
I think so.
Yeah. And then he said, so basically I like to gloat, you know, so,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Cobra Commander. Oh man, this dude. I don't know how he rose up the ranks of Cobra, but,
I don't either.
it's sometimes. Do you ever get the feeling that he was just, he put an ad in the paper? He's like, "Hey, do you like snakes and want to form a bad guy group?" Like, hey, I got this club. You want to join?
Well, I guess if he's the best at the job, I'd hate to see anybody else
hate to see the worst.
But it always takes G.I. Joe like to the last minute to stop him.
Well, that's true. So I guess he's at least pretty,
right.
pretty proficient.
It's that last 1%, that last 2.5 minutes that always gets him.
He's got no clutch.
Right.
Yeah. So Shipwreck, he manages to use the side of beef, like you said, to get over the hook, grabs a key, unlocks everyone, and those there's like 6 Joes.
Right.
Those 6 Joes are like taking over this entire battalion of like Cobra guys.
It's always 6 Joes versus infinite number of Cobras.
Yeah. Well, that's how good the Joes are, man.
Right. Absolutely.
And they're just they're killing it, doing everything they can, and so then they get in the Cobra vehicles.
Right, they get in the Cobra vehicles.
And they go after them to try to stop them.
Oh, and when G.I. Joe was retaking their base, they took over Destro, who actually shot Polly, which is Shipwreck's parrot, and made him tiny.
Oh, that's right.
Then they realized there was a double switch on the molecular reducer
and larger
gun. So they flipped the switch and, made Polly regular size. He wasn't feeling good, so they left Polly behind. Well, to come to find out, he grew to like 50 stories tall or something like that. And then he goes and
Shipwreck.
Yeah. He goes and helps save the day
Save the day.
The other Joes. But
it's all thanks to Polly.
It's something I didn't realize till I was watching that. When the G.I. Joes were in the Cobra vehicles and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
I think overall, Cobra had better vehicles than G.I. Joe did.
I think you're right. Their HISS tanks were pretty awesome.
Yeah. And then they had that hang glider thing.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted that one, and I wanted the HISS, and I never got those.
Right.
Those are really cool. I did have the water moccasin vehicle.
Right.
That one was cool. Yeah. But I never got all the ones I wanted, of course. I mean,
right.
Yeah, they did have better equipment. And then what does I think Wild Weasel is the one that he's surprised that is it Wild Bill that
right.
when he's doing in the helicopter.
Yeah,
And
he does the 360 in the in the helicopter.
he's like, no one can do that. And,
Right.
and somehow Wild Bill can hear him.
Right.
I guess they're on the same channel or whatever, but he's just like, I ain't no one. Oh man,
those helicopters don't make a lot of noise,
yeah, exactly. He's just, he can just hear like normal. Yeah, who needs your headphones? Forget it.
Right.
Yeah, and so of course they save the day, and they have toys and everything. But as far as Christmas episodes go, I guess the biggest thing was a Junkyard wasn't really feeling very Christmassy.
Right. He wasn't. He said his parents made such a big fuss about Christmas that they left him out. Seemed didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's kind of a jerk move.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I don't know if they were like, if they meant like their Christmas was, some people's houses are like a museum. You can't touch anything.
Oh, yeah.
Cold and stale. I didn't know if it was like that or if they just loved Christmas so much that they wanted to do everything. And, because he said something about he didn't even get to hang up his own stocking.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it's like, it's either that they loved it so much that they wanted to do everything and they excluded him, or it was they had that museum mentality and they wouldn't let anybody do it because it wouldn't be done right otherwise.
Yeah,
it's unclear, but I'm kind of glad they touched on that sometimes, even though it's not resolved very well, but sometimes people feel sad at Christmas. I think they even used the Christmas blues line.
Yeah, I think they did.
And things like that. But I'm glad they did touch on that, but I wish they could have resolved it a little bit better.
A little bit better. All of a sudden they saved the day, they beat Cobra, and then he's like, I like Christmas.
nothing like a good gunfight to get you in the Christmas spirit.
Get you in the Christmas spirit, yeah. That always cheers me up.
Well, you're from Texas, so you probably got to have a gunfight all the time.
That's true, yeah. Somehow I must have misplaced my Christmas guns.
Right.
Yeah, it's got a nice candy cane handle there. But,
right.
No,
it's some money in that actually.
There might be actually a Christmas gun. Yeah. This Christmas gun brought to you by Totally Rad Christmas. No, but anyway, it was a strange resolution, but in the end, he ends up liking Christmas, and of course, Shipwreck is kind of like, oh.
Yeah, because he has a 50-foot tall
gigantic bird. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he even says it's my worst nightmare.
Yeah, doesn't seem to get along with that bird very well for some reason.
And yet he loves it because he's so concerned when.
Right, when he's small.
When he's small, yeah.
That's one character that got a lot of play in the cartoons that I never did really care for was
Shipwreck. Same here. I didn't have the toy. I never wanted the toy.
Nope.
And I remember I think he even had an episode, like a whole episode. It might have even been a 2-part where he like goes back to his hometown or something, and the people are all melting, and they're all like synthezoids or something, some crazy 80s nonsense.
Right.
And I remember being really scared of that episode. But yeah, he was like a main character.
Right.
And I don't know if they just wanted to emphasize like the naval branch, or
I guess so. But I mean, Gun Ho was the Marine, but he had a few high spots here and there, but he wasn't like central all the time.
Yeah.
Because it was like, it was Flint and Cover Girl,
Lady J,
and then Shipwreck and Dusty and Roadblock, that kind of main rotation. And that's one thing I didn't remember is that every time Roadblock talked, he rhymed. I had.
Oh yeah, I did remember that, and I remember when I first saw Terry Crews in. I don't even remember what movie he was in, but I remember when I first saw him, I thought, man, that guy should play Roadblock.
Right.
And that would have been really cool. I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool.
I mean, now I guess he's what, like 50, something like that.
He's probably a little too old for that.
Yeah, but that I would have loved to have seen him play Roadblock. Just can you imagine Terry Crews rhyming?
Yeah, that would be cool. You could use what's that guy? Is it Michael Cotner that played Luke Cage?
Oh, Mike Coulter.
Coulter from he'd be a good one.
Yeah, he would too. I don't see him rhyming or wanting to rhyme, but I think it would have been a pretty badass roadblock. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing. That's one thing that's disappointed me is G.I. Joe could have been a pretty decent movie franchise, I think, but the ball was really dropped on them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it would have been the greatest thing in the world, but I had a feeling it could be pretty decent.
It's funny because I remember when the movie came out, and it was just a popcorn flick. You turn your brain off, you watch, and I enjoyed it, but it was kind of terrible.
Right.
And I remember thinking, why do they have these suits, and what was all this mumbo jumbo? It could have just been a cool military thing.
Right.
And then I went back and watched some of the cartoons, and I realized how much of that weird sci-fi, thing that they actually did, and I didn't remember that at all.
Right.
And I think ever since The Dark Knight kind of came out and everything has to be dark and gritty, and we kind of lose a sense of that fantasy. At least I did. Everything was more geared towards that. But I think in this case, I think it would have benefited G.I. Joe movies to be more of just like a straight military, Olympus has fallen type of thing.
Right.
I think that would have been really cool, where they have to invade the Cobra headquarters. Cobra comes in, they take over the White House or Fort Knox or whatever, Pentagon, and the Joes have to come in and like rescue everybody. I think that would have been pretty cool.
I think it would have been better too if they would have jumped in the middle of the story instead of trying to have origins for everything.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
Because sometimes things get stalled out when you try to do origins.
They do get muddled, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember liking that second one with
I did too, yeah. The Rock. Well, The Rock was Roadblock, wasn't he?
I think he was Roadblock. And then wasn't Channing Tatum Duke?
He was Duke, yeah, and they killed him in the second movie.
Yeah. Or did he just see, and that's the other thing after the cartoon that we mentioned where they said they were going to kill him and they did kill him. I was kept waiting for him to come back.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he faked his death. He's coming
That's
back.
what I thought too, yeah.
The whole movie. Then he did, and I thought, well, maybe he'll show up in the next one, but then there was never a next one. So
no, I think I wouldn't have minded a next one because I did like the second one better than the first.
Right.
I think some of the choices they made in the first were just a little too cartoony.
Right.
And then in the second one they kind of tightened it up a little bit and did make it more like that straight up kind of military thing.
Right.
Of course, they tried to bring in Bruce Willis, and they made him like just some dude, Joe, somebody that they based it off. And they could have made him like General Hawk. They could have, instead of what's his name, Dennis Quaid. I mean, they could have made him like anybody. Really, the Joe's canon is like huge, and instead
they basically made him Mr. G.I. Joe.
Pretty much, yeah.
Basically all they did, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a little bit of a disappointment too.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
But I think overall, the Joes, I mean, they did so much money worldwide, and they kept rebooting. But I think, their series in the 80s it ran, 85 and 86. It was 2 seasons, 55 episodes. And I think they really started it all because it was them that they had the tie-in comics. It was them that created the TV show for it, and of course the commercials, and just to promote this toy line. And they're the ones that they got He-Man doing it, and then Thundercats did it, and all these others that really just jumped on that bandwagon because of Joe's.
Yeah, they were kind of the first out there to try that strategy, and it paid off in dividends. Paid off for other toys more than it did for Joe, but like I said in the beginning, they seem to be the consistent through line. I mean, the 3 3/4 inch figures ran from 82 to 94.
Yeah,
so it was really about 88 when they started kind of falling off.
Yeah,
cliff. Doing a lot of neon colored stuff.
I remember those. The
Echo,
Ninja Force, Tiger Force, and
Eco Warriors kind of.
Oh
thing.
yeah.
So.
I remember there was a character, and I had the figure because I liked the way he looked, but he was called DJ, and like his big thing was like he was a DJ. And it's like, wait, how does this help in military situations at all?
Right.
And there was another one. You could tell this is when they started just really stretching for ideas. But there was another one. It was like Psych Out was his name, and his whole thing was he was into like psychological warfare, and
Uh-huh.
which, at least I can see that being used, maybe propaganda, things like that. But
Right.
but
Well,
his back card mentions that I think it says something like he uses a device to kind of like get inside people's heads and like mess with
uh-huh.
their heads. And I thought, wow,
Right.
that seems wrong
Uh-huh.
for the Joes. That just seems very wrong.
Well, they seemed to try to put, like more real people in there.
Yeah,
Because I remember the refrigerator Perry
that's right. The fridge. Yeah,
was a action figure, and then there was one called Bazooka.
I remember Bazooka.
Um, I don't know if he was based off anybody, but he looked just like Dick Butkus. And he wore a football jersey.
He did, yeah.
So I don't know if he was based off him or not, or off someone else. And then
I know at one time they were actually going to try to do a Rocky Balboa GI Joe as
right.
well, and that ended up falling through. But they were going to make Rocky a GI Joe.
Right, because they fell through because that Rambo animated series was getting ready to launch.
Oh yeah.
And so Stallone had to license his likeness
Yeah.
to whoever was making those toys, which had a few of those too, and those were like
I did too, yeah.
7-inch figures or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, they were a lot taller.
Uh-huh. And then they have the Cobra had what was going to be like Rocky's arch enemy, and his name was like Balboa. It was based off his last name of Balboa, but I can't remember the name of it now. Oh man, this makes for good podcasting.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. But, he was like a guy who wore boxing gloves and had like this flying saucer kind of helmet head looking thing.
Yeah, you can tell they were really scraping the bottom of the barrel towards the end there.
They were, and then with Sergeant Slaughter, they had him at first, but then he was kind of like a rogue unit, and he had his renegades, which is
yeah. I'm actually looking at those right now. They
like
came out in the movie during GI Joe the movie,
right? And they were like circus strongmen or something like that, or one
yeah.
of them was, and these real silly gimmicks,
Oh yeah, the Battle Force 2000. I really enjoyed those.
Right. Yeah,
so
going
many
back
lines.
going back to Refrigerator Perry, he was like their fitness instructor. The real Refrigerator Perry was anything but a fitness instructor, even though he's a pro athlete. He was there was a reason they called him the Refrigerator, and it wasn't just because he was as big as one.
Oh man, can you imagine? Like your whole reason for being hired is is one thing, and you're like the opposite of it.
Right.
Well, they say fake it till you make it. So
right. Well, I mean, he did good for himself.
Yeah, he sure did. Oh man, yeah. The GI Joe movie came out, and then they released that. It was like a whole different backstory with like snake people. Or people that evolved from reptiles or something like that populated the earth before humans came around. And I mean, it was just odd. And then that's when, of course, Cobra Commander gets turned into a snake. I think in the cartoon, the later series, I think he comes back. So I don't know how that happens or why, but
yeah, about 88 or so, things kind of get foggy because 88, I turned 11 years old, and Nintendo was ruling the world, and so my interest in cartoons after school was waning a little bit.
Yeah.
And plus two, where I grew up, we only had 2 channels we could get in very well. Well, 3 channels we could get in very well, and only one of them played after school cartoons. So and by that time the Disney after school stuff was starting to take over.
Yeah.
And so even though G.I. Joe had a little bit longer run, it probably was taken off for DuckTales or Tailspin or something like that.
Chippendales Rescue Rangers and Darkwing Duck. Yeah,
all that, because there was a time when that was all after school stuff. That it was the 2 hours of Disney programming, and and everything else kind of fell off. There wasn't. You might get Silverhawks or something. Towards the end.
Silverhawks, nice.
Of the run there, but.
Did you ever play the G.I. Joe video game?
Not that I remember. I think it was. No, I can't even say that. I don't. Not that I remember ever playing it.
So there were there were two, and I remember playing the first one, and it was hard. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it was crazy hard, and I never got past like the second level.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I'm sure other people are. I'm sure they probably thought it was super easy, but I was used to like Mega Man and Contra, and
Right.
the Joe one for some reason. I just couldn't get past it, and I always felt so bad because I wanted it to be so cool. I wanted it to look like Mega Man or look
Right.
like Double Dragon or something,
Right.
And the graphics just weren't great, and the
Right.
gameplay wasn't great. But it said GI Joe, so I remember going to our local video place and renting it like every Friday night. Come rent that and like one other game, and
Right.
just
And
try
go
to
for
get
the
past it.
weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never did, and I couldn't tell you if there was a reason why. Probably just because there was just so much else going for my attention.
So, what is your happiest memory of GI Joe at Christmas time?
I remember. Well, I remember getting several GI Joes at Christmas time, but one that I was overly excited about was this. I wouldn't say it was obscure, but it was it was a vehicle that they called the bridge layer. It was like this tank that laid the
Yeah,
bridge down, and it came with a guy named Toll Booth.
I
And,
remember that.
and I remember getting that and for Christmas and being so excited just because I like going down and putting the bridge down, and then you could detach it and pull away and
Yeah.
the GI Joes go across and then go pick it back up, and it was so cool. And come to find out that was a Sears exclusive.
Oh,
You could
wow.
only buy that one at Sears, and I remember, I think there might have been one episode that was in. Maybe it was seen in the background in a few others,
Hmm.
but I remember just really liking that because of basically the functionality of it, and how easy and fun it was to play with, and to put that bridge down and pick it back up, put another bridge down, for your other Joes to cross. So I would say that would be it.
That's cool. Yeah, mine, as I mentioned earlier, was the getting that Sky Striker, and I remember being so excited and take it out of the box, and most of it was assembled. The wings kind of popped into place, and you do a few things, but putting the stickers on, and I wanted it to be perfect, so I had my dad do it because I didn't want to mess it up, and and just putting the guy. I don't remember I think his name was Ace, and you'd put him in the cockpit. And the cockpit even opened up. I mean, it was
Right.
really cool,
Right.
the level of detail that they went in on this thing. And I'll just never forget just opening up, playing with it, running around my grandma's living room. And she had a tiny little house. His little Hispanic grandma in this tiny little house, and then just running around all over the place with this thing, and it was like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that since you said it, I think that's the one thing that really sticks out for me for the GI Joe toys is even the most basic figure you'd buy by itself, the paint and the detail on the body and on the armor and equipment the guy has is so good. A lot of details in there, and even their pistols or their rifles that they would hold, were, I wouldn't say they were finely detailed, but it was enough to know that they put some thought into it.
Yeah, and I think when they originally came out with their 12-inch, I think they actually went and modeled a lot of their equipment after actual military equipment. And so it makes sense that they would kind of continue to do the same, at least with, the standard equipment, none of the laser stuff, but at least with that, it would make sense that they kind of did that. So that was always cool. But all right, I want to see. Listeners, this is up to you. We're going to have a little contest here. It's time for Gag Me with the Spoon. Now, I know this is only the second time we played it, so it's going to be a little bit different, but you guys are going to vote. Todd and I are each going to do our best impressions of the part that we thought was the absolute worst of one of these G.I. Joe episodes. Specifically, the Cobra Claws are coming to town. So, Todd, since you're the guest, I will allow you to go first.
All right. I guess the part I will be doing is the scene is G.I. Joe is taking back their base, and they have Destro surrounded, and they say, "We have you, Destro," and Destro replies by saying, "Or do I have you?"
that's, oh man, it's great. Okay, Well, the part that I want to do, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, was when Polly is mega huge and Shipwreck sees her, and he says in his best voice, "Oh no, it's my worst nightmare come true." It's terrible.
That's great.
Oh man. So which one of us had the better impression? The winner will get a little something that to be determined right now. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do yet, but it'll definitely be something fun for the winner of this. And if I win, I get nothing. But anyway, so before we go, first of all, let me say it's been a blast. But before we go, I want to know, the Joes, they always say knowing is half the battle. What do you think is the other half?
Oh, what is the other half of the battle? That's a good question. That's a question I've been asking for years now. I guess if I want to be real philosophical about it, I guess if knowing is half the battle, I guess the other half of the battle would have to be applying what you know.
Oh, wow.
You know, just not knowing it in your head, but actually taking that knowledge and doing something constructive with it and putting it to use.
I like that. It's nice. I think for me, I think the other half of the battle is making sure that you check your molecular reducer enlarger for a reverse switch first.
Right.
And fortifying that bad boy so it doesn't break.
Well, that was 10 years of research and you couldn't build more sturdy houses.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, man. Just line it with something.
Right.
Reinforce that bad boy.
Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Todd, thank you so much. What do you want to plug here?
Well, of course, the Christmas Clatter podcast. You guys haven't heard it. It's available wherever you can find a podcast at. We're available to follow on Facebook and Instagram at Christmas Clatter Podcast, at ClatterPod on Twitter, and ChristmasClatterPodcast.com is our website if you guys want to visit that. And we do episodes twice a month, and we just celebrate everything that makes Christmas special.
Yeah, it's a great show. Check it out if you haven't already. Again, Todd, thanks. And you can catch me at Totally Rad Christmas on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that jazz. And website coming soon. So again, thanks, Todd, and Merry Christmas, dudes and dudettes. We'll catch you later.
Got you a little present, Duke.
Oh, what's that?
The key to your handcuffs.
You shouldn't have.
Merry Christmas, Duke.
Son of a gun. It is Christmas, Junkyard. All of a sudden, I don't feel bad anymore. Merry Christmas, you old hound dog.
Merry Christmas, Joes.
Everybody.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
Bah humbug.
Hello, this is Todd Killian from the Christmas Clatter podcast. What makes Christmas special to you? Is it the movies or the music, the food or family, the gifts or decorations? Maybe those quiet moments of reflection. Whatever it is, join me for Christmas Clatter, a monthly podcast dedicated to everything that makes Christmas special. Visit ChristmasClatter.com for all social media links and find Christmas Clatter Podcast on all podcast apps. Thank you, and remember, keep Christmas hope alive every day.